Hello, beautiful humans. How are you today? It is Monday, April 14th. We are on a lunch break here at the Maricopa County Courthouse, and I'm just waiting to see if there are people here. I do see people here. What should we talk about today? Should we talk about the weather? The weather's beautiful. It is nice and overcast, so it's not too sunny, not too hot. And I ended up again having to do this on my laptop because my settings weren't set the way that I thought they were. So here we are, making the best of it. Thank you for being here today. I am reporting live from the Lori Vallow Daybell conspiracy trial here in Phoenix, Arizona, Maricopa County Courthouse, and I'm live in court taking notes. I got to sit next to Detective Moore, I believe it is, and Detective Hermosillo from Idaho today. We got to meet last night. I got to hug them and say thank you for their work on this case. And this morning, Colby is here once again. I think this is the last day that he's going to be in court probably for a while. And the gallery is full. There's lots of reporters. Everybody's here. So Lori is her typical feisty self today. She normally is much better put together than today. Her outfit is not quite as fashionable. She is wearing some suit pants, and then she's wearing the same navy blue blazer that we've seen her wear, sort of with the ruffle on the back. And to me, people have said that they can't really see the rack belt, but to me personally, it's visible under that blazer because it just doesn't hang quite right. But then she's also wearing this kind of ill-fitting white button-down shirt with a black t-shirt under, and she doesn't have it tucked into her pants, so it kind of looks sloppy. But anyway, I just want to really quickly address something that is related to the trial, but not totally related. Over the weekend, apparently there were some derogatory things said about me by my cousin Adam Cox on his Silver Linings podcast, and some, questionable comments that were made on Colby's video as well, where he was addressing rumors about Ty Lee being at his wedding. I'm not going to address any of that specifically right now. I do want to address it, but I am going to make a static video about that. I'm not going to do it on a live, and it is probably going to happen sometime later today. I am going to do my live recap right after court gets out today, and then I'm going to work on that video. And then I also am appearing on Web Sleuths Live again tonight, so I'm very excited to be back with Trisha and the insightful one, recapping what happened in court last week, the most important moments, and talking a little bit more, doing some speculation about how things might go this week. So I had a great weekend. I only had about 48 hours at home, just a little over that. I got to spend some time with my kids and with my Samuel and my dogs, and to eat some good food and to relax a little bit and to sleep in a little bit. So I'm feeling rested with the caveat that I've been dealing with that drama this weekend as well. So many of you have been so kind to message me and comment and give your support, lend your support to me. I really appreciate that. So many people reached out to let me know what was going on. And I'm going to address all of that later. So I'll let you guys know what's going on, give you an update a little later. So for now, to what was happening in the courtroom this morning. There were a few things that happened prior to the first witness being called, and basically there were some motions that were filed by the state on Friday. Those have not been posted yet to the portal, to the document portal, so I don't have those actual motions yet, but Joe Schmo and I, who collaborated the last time there was a big drop of motions, he's agreed to collaborate with me again graciously, so make sure you go over to Joe Schmo 88 and subscribe to his channel. And definitely, he and I are going to look at some of these motions. One of them was a subpoena for Bobby Vallow. Now, it's not clear at the moment whether or not Bobby's been subpoenaed by the state or by the defense. I suspect that Bobby Vallow has been subpoenaed by the defense. He is one of Charles Vallow's brothers. And if Lori did, in fact, serve him a subpoena, I don't believe he was on her original witness list. So I'm not sure what's allowed with that, but there's going to be some discussion about that this afternoon at 1:15 before court goes back into session. There's also a couple of motions in limine. One has to do with a police report. One has to do with precluding defense witnesses. And there's another motion regarding a video that was seen by Janice Cox and Summer Shiflett, Lori's mom and sister. Don't know yet what that video was, but I do know that Janice and Summer are on Lori's witness list, and she is wanting to call them as witnesses. And so I don't know if the state's objection has to do with that particular ordeal, but I suspect it does. Then there was some discussion about timing for the second trial, which is going to happen immediately after this one is over. They're talking about dates to send out jury questionnaires and right now to review answers. And right now they're saying that opening statements in that case will be on the 2nd of June. And then they're expected to meet the weeks of the 9th. They'll be dark the following week, and then the week of the 23rd and the week of the 30th. So far, that's what they have on the calendar. But again, all of this can change depending on how this case goes and lots of other factors determining that. So the first witness this morning was the medical examiner, Dr. Baumgardner, who did the autopsy report on Charles Vallow. I had a super nice channel member who works in the medical field review the actual autopsy report and point some things out to me. So I was interested to know if any of that would come out. So of course he gave his qualifications and background, and then of course we had to look at the autopsy photos. And I'll just note some things that I think were noteworthy on those. There were no abrasions or contusions on Charles's face or head that would have been consistent with being shot and falling straight backwards. I thought that was really interesting. I think that's what a lot of us have kind of assumed was going to happen. Then there was some bruising to the sternal chest perimortem around the time of death, which would have been consistent with CPR and with the gunshot wound. There were small abrasions on the first and third knuckle of his left hand, as well as blood on his left hand, where, again, I think the prosecutor pointed out that he may have raised his hand to the wound at some point. There was no damage to his watch. And then we discussed the gunshot wound, soot versus stippling. And the medical examiner did not use the word stippling in his medical report. He said that the gunshot residue causes an abrasion due to high velocity when they're stippling, and he would need to test fire the gun in order to see if the stippling had any bearing on the wound that was caused. But basically he said that in this case, he believed that the gun was approximately 2 to 4 feet away from the victim. And because there was not an advanced amount of stippling observed. So all of Lori's talk about stippling and the distance of the gun, that pretty much was put to rest by what the medical examiner had to say in this case. There was an exit wound around the thoracic back, which is the middle of the back, just to the left of the spine. It was a larger slit-like wound, and that indicated it was an exit wound. It was not immediately fatal, and the medical examiner said he could have lived for seconds up to several minutes. He believes probably around 2 minutes. He could have still spoken and moved at this point, and that's the point at which the prosecutor indicated that he may have lifted his hand to touch that wound. The interesting thing that we found here that I didn't know previously is that there were abrasions and contusions on Charles's knees. Those would have been consistent with Charles falling to his knees. And that's not something I had considered before. And it was pretty heartbreaking to think about, because given the location of the body, and the way that Charles was laying, that means likely Adam would have had to move the body somehow or stage it somehow. There's just no way that he could have fallen to his knees and then eventually, been laying flat the way that Adam had him. And it'll be interesting to compare, and I don't know if anybody in the chat just knows off of the top of their head, in the 911 phone call with Alex, where the operator is trying to give directions. I'm so sorry. Adam and Alex, it's, Adam's on my brain right now for a minute, and so I apologize if I said Adam. I meant Alex as far as being at the scene and being the shooter. Alex would have had to move his body. But I would be interested to know in the 911 call where they're trying to give Alex directions about doing CPR. I would be interested to know if we get to hear in the phone call whether, what Alex said about the position of the body there, and if he had to move it in order to perform CPR, which we don't believe that he did, according to the paramedics. So that first bullet went through the 9th thoracic vertebrae, and that's where the detective who investigated the crime scene and talked about the bullet that was lodged across the room in the floor molding. He was saying that's consistent with the bullet moving and then striking the vertebrae and losing momentum and then going down into the floorboard across the room. So the medical examiner corroborated that, basically. Then the second shot went through the abdomen, right underneath the rib cage. The medical examiner said that the shooter would have had to be 3 to 4 feet from the victim, and then it exited the back of the left shoulder, and it was a shored wound. And this is indicated by the tearing that's seen on the wound, and he said the body would have been against the floor. Trina K was very specific to ask, could it have been a t-shirt? Medical examiner said no. Trina K said, how many shored wounds have you seen in your time as a medical examiner? He said less than 50. And she said, was this a typical example of a shored wound? And he said, this is a textbook example. This bullet struck the back part of the left fourth rib and the connective tissue. And there was a 13-inch difference in distance from the head to the wound between the entrance wound and the exit wounds. It's meaning that the entrance wound was much lower in relation to the head than the exit wound, a 13-inch difference. I did see the autopsy photos. I did briefly look at each picture. I tried to look at each picture and then look down and take notes. I did that because I believe that it's important to confront how horrible and how awful this crime was. It's important to confront the reality of it and to not sort of make things nicer in your head than they actually were, because I think for me personally, that delays the grieving process. It leaves room open for some speculation and magical thinking. I think for me, confronting the facts, even if it is really, really hard and so difficult to watch and listen to, that for me, it helps me process. It helps me to be grounded in reality. So yeah, it was difficult, but I think important. So the trajectory was front to back, right to left, and upward, which would have been consistent with the shooter standing at the feet of the victim and firing when Charles was on the floor. Also, the medical examiner noted that there was nothing significant that came up in toxicology. Then on cross-examination, Lori came out and said, how many drugs are tested and what drugs are tested on the toxicology report. And the medical examiner said around 16 to 20, those drugs that are typically abused, and also different types of alcohol. Lori asked if they would have tested for testosterone or human growth hormone. And the medical examiner said no. Then Lori asked, would you test for those things if law enforcement asked for it? And he said, if possible, but it's not typical. And he said, of course, they try to accommodate the request if it's something in line with, what's necessary, that they're gonna test it. I'm just checking because I don't see anything moving, and I'm wondering if I'm frozen. Okay, good. I see it moving now. Then Lori wanted to know if the bruises on Charles's knees and hands close to the time of death could have been caused by a scuffle that was prior to death. Karina Torres asks, why would she ask about steroids? I think it's because maybe she's going to try and put in this narrative that Charles was taking steroids, maybe he was agitated and angry, maybe taking human growth hormone had something to do with the altercation. It's a thin argument, but I think maybe that's why she asked. The medical examiner said yes, that the bruises and abrasions and contusions on the hands and knees could have happened as a result of a scuffle prior to the death. And then Lori asks again, would it be possible for him to be falling when the second shot was fired? And that just strains credulity. He said, no, the trajectory of that wound, there's no way possible that he was in motion and falling when that shot came, and that he definitely was laying on his back. And then again, she's going to bring up the tight clothing. Is it possible that he could have been wearing tight clothing that would have caused the appearance of a shored wound? And he said, usually if they see any type of shoring from a wound like this, it's because of something quite restrictive like a belt or a bra, but not a t-shirt. Lori then asked, are you familiar with bamboo fabric? And he said, no. And then she said in her baby voice, that's all I have, Your Honor. Then on redirect, Trina K came back and said that a shored wound, did it look like a shored wound on both the entrance and the exit? And he said yes. Then the jury had some questions about the amount of blood in lungs and the chest cavity and where the blood could have been pooling, and basically, and whether or not there was any blood in the throat or the mouth. And the medical examiner said that basically, if the heart was still beating, that there would be some pooling in the lung and chest cavity. That would be normal, but it's impossible to tell in this case whether the heart was beating or not. Then the redirect for those questions said, Trina K said, when a bullet is struck in the heart, where would you expect the blood to go? And the medical examiner said left chest cavity. And then if the heart was still beating or fibrillating, blood would spill out of those defects, meaning the gunshot wounds. And then she asked if there was blood in the throat or mouth. Is the absence of that mean that there's no way he was still alive? The medical examiner said that we couldn't rule that out. Then we have Mark Sari, who is the investigator for the Social Security Administration. He investigates fraud and abuse within the administration. He went on to explain how they determine what types of benefits are given based on what benefits are applied for. And so in June of 2018, when Joe Ryan died, Tylee Ryan began receiving $1,859 a month as a death benefit for her father dying. And then on August 12th of 2019 is when Lori went into the Social Security Administration to apply for benefits for JJ and as a mother care benefit for herself. When she filled out that application, she indicated that she and Charles were living together. And there was a letter that was sent to the address in Santan Valley that confirmed then that their determination was that JJ and Lori would both receive benefits of $1,951 per month. So basically about $4,000 a month, which goes back to the text message where Lori says to Chad, at least we still have the $4,000 a month from Social Security. And then he noted that in his investigation, they discovered that Lori married Chad Daybell on November 5th of 2019. This is less than 4 months after Charles was killed. And then on cross-examination, of course, Lori's going to be up to her normal hijinks, trying to call into question the investigation. Sorry, there's a fly that's flying all over the place. She basically tried to allege that maybe the employees had messed something up on the application, and basically the investigator said that due to the documents that they had in front of them and the actions of the employees, they were assigned those benefits. And I think what Lori was trying to allege is that she went in and applied for surviving spouse benefits, and instead they awarded her mother care benefits. Now, I don't really know what the difference is to Lori or to her case or to any of this. She's just trying to poke holes where she can, but she gets objected to over and over for testifying because she's asking questions. She's asking the wrong questions, basically. And what she's doing is she's testifying during her questions. She's saying, so if I went in and applied for benefits as a surviving spouse and they awarded me mother care benefits, that would have been their mistake. But it's a thin argument. It's not really relevant. And also she gets objected to all the time for testifying. So basically she's trying to say an employee messed it up, and the examiner said, or the investigator said, no, that's not the case. We don't tell people what kind of benefits they're getting. They come in and apply for benefits, and then we make a determination based on the documents that are presented. And so they were relying on the information that's given by the applicant at the appointment, and he's seen all of the documents. And then Lori tried to get in that she maybe was told that she wasn't allowed to put any of that money into savings for college, but that she had to spend it every single month. And the investigator said no, they could use it or conserve it. And Lori said, couldn't they do an audit to see whether that money's being spent on utilities and rent and bills? And he basically said no, that you don't have to spend all of that money. He said you could save it if you wanted to. And then Tater K says you have to be 61 to get benefits, but not if those are retirement benefits. If you have a spouse pass away, or if you're the minor child of a parent whose spouse passes away, you can get those benefits right away. And that's what Lori was doing. She claimed benefits for JJ as the child of a deceased parent, and she claimed benefits for herself as the mother of a child of a deceased parent. But basically the investigator said that's not correct. Lots of objections about asked and answered. Lori asked for a moment to confer because she needed to know what the right question was. And basically she came back and said, so you weren't present at the interview. You don't know what was said. When the investigation started into this fraud, she called it fraud. And so, that's whether she did that intentionally or by mistake. She called it fraud, and the jury heard it. She asked, who's your superior, who is assigned to the case? It's not really relevant, but the judge says you can answer if you know. So the guy gave the name of his, his employer or his direct report. And then she said in her baby voice, no more questions. And then at redirect, Trina said, what was the point of that meeting that Lori went to? And the guy said that was to determine her eligibility. And then was a letter sent to Mrs. Vallow? And he said yes. And that's when he indicated Social Security Administration does not decide what benefits the applicant gets. The applicant comes in, makes an application, and Lori would have had to apply for mother care benefits in order to receive them. And then upon remarriage, benefits should have ceased. And she did not report to the Social Security Administration that she had been married. And there's a national database that would have indicated that. And so he would have seen it in his investigation if she had reported it. So Lori was trying to get in that maybe she reported it and he didn't see it. Then the jury questions asked, did the payments to Lori Vallow stop after the investigation? He said yes. Good question. Did Lori Vallow notify Social Security about her marriage? No. I'm glad that got in. And then on Lori's follow-up, that's when she tried to bring in, I was in Hawaii in the Social Security office, and they didn't report it. And then objection to her testifying. And she said, do you have all of the information from every office? And he said yes, and there was no record of the notification of the marriage. And she said only the records you had access to. He said there's a whole database, and then on redirect, Trina came in and said, you have computer systems, not just papers laying around. They're updated everywhere in the country. Did you access and review those? And were any changes ever made? And he said Social Security was not advised of her marriage. So that's all. Then Robin Swift Scott, who is a claims representative at Banner Life. She's been there for 13 years, and she has previously testified in court about life insurance policies. And she basically explained the difference between a policy owner and the insured. The policy owner is the only one who can make changes to the policy. In other words, like who the beneficiary is. The insured is the person who's covered, and the policy owner and insured can be two different people. The beneficiary is the receiver of the payout, and they cannot make policy changes because they're not the policy owner. But the policy owner and the beneficiary can be the same person. But in this case, obviously, it wasn't. So the claims examiner reviews the policy and determines and confirms the primary beneficiary. At this point, Lori's very agitated. She slams her pad down. She gets angry anytime information gets in that she disagrees with or doesn't like. So basically, in February, Charles Vallow requested a beneficiary change form. He had it notified or notarized and changed it to Kay Woodcock, and so that was done on February 26th. Now, we'll have more from her when we come back from lunch. And after the jury left, there was a little bit of a sidebar that had not been recorded, and he wanted to get that into the record. The questions from the jurors for the medical examination, or for the Social Security examiner. It was question number 8. There were 3 parts to the question. Wanted to know if the payments were stopped after the investigation. That one we did ask. And then applicant, sorry, some of my notes are a little messy and sometimes it's hard to read my handwriting. If the applicant lied on their application, would they have to pay back benefits? But that question was not asked. And then the question of did Lori Vallow notify of her remarriage? The defense objected to that question being asked, but it was asked anyway. Then the judge asked the clerk to file the email from the state to the judge that was sent on Friday, the 11th, and to have that sent to the defense so that they could review it. And it was regarding the subpoena service that was sent to Bobby Vallow. Now, I'm guessing based on that information that the subpoena sent to Bobby Vallow was sent by Lori, and that the state objects to that service. Now, I'm just going to give you a little bit of a prediction here. It's Monday. We've gotten through 2 witnesses today. The majority or all of the civilian witnesses from the state's list have already been called. All that's left are, I believe there's another detective, and I believe that there is another paramedic that could be called. I think the state's going to finish it up this week. Honestly, I would be surprised if the state doesn't rest in the next couple of days. I'm going to go back and review the witness list again and see how many. I think this morning when I looked, there were 4, and 2 of them are here today. Depending on how cross-examination goes from Lori, I think the state could be ready to rest really soon. And at this current moment, I only know of 3 subpoenas, 4 subpoenas now with Bobby Vallow that Lori has sent out, and there's been objections to all of them. 2 of the detectives that Lori subpoenaed were told to appear on the wrong day. And so I don't even know if Lori's going to have any witnesses. And Mr. Greenbean Bobby did not testify, but Lori, I think, wants to subpoena him to testify. So yes, we can bash Lori. That's the whole reason we're here, is to get her convicted, to get justice for Charles. But yeah. So I don't think that she has a defense to present, and I really don't think that she is going to testify, because then she'd be subject to cross-examination. So I think it's possible, you guys, this case could be over this week. We could be done with this. It's really possible. I don't know if they got a hold of people in the Cox family, but the state was basically saying that those witnesses didn't have anything material to offer as far as evidence in this case. So Lori did have Summer on her witness list. She had Janice, Barry, Summer, Adam, all on her witness list. But I don't think that she is going to be allowed to call any of those people because they don't have anything relevant to add. Again, Bobby Vallow is the brother of Charles Vallow, and there is a recording out there, which I'll find for you, and we'll talk about it in my recap this afternoon. There's a recording where Bobby Vallow did talk to police, so I'm curious what Lori even wants to ask him, but we will dig into that. So again, I'm going to be back at 5:30 local time to recap the rest of the day. And then I believe at 7:30 is when I go on Web Sleuths. Again, you can look for a response video from me regarding Adam's comments that will happen later in the day. So yeah, what does it say when your family won't respond so that they can be at your trial? Very telling. I don't think any of them want to appear on behalf of the defendant. So there's that. Hey, I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for being here. Over 680 people here in the chat. Please take a second to like the video so that it can get out there in the algorithm. I can use all the help I can get. I have lost a few subscribers over this dumb family drama that's going on, but I appreciate those of you who are here and who are supporting justice for Charles. The truth matters, justice matters, and that's why we're here. So I will see you again later this afternoon. Take care, everybody.